Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, as Chairman of the House of the Subcommittee with jurisdiction over the United States Postal Service, I am pleased to present H.R. 3951 for consideration. This legislation will designate the United States Postal Service facility located at 2000 Louisiana Avenue in New Orleans, Louisiana as the Roy Rondeno Sr. Post Office Building. Introduced by my colleague, Representative Hon. Joseph Gow of Louisiana on October 28, 2009, and reported out of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee on November 18, 2009 by unanimous consent, H.R. 3951 enjoys the support of the entire Louisiana House delegation. A native of New Orleans, Louisiana, Roy Rondeno Sr. served his beloved community as a dedicated employee of the United States Postal Service for over 30 years. Notably, Mr. Rondeno worked at the United States Postal Service facility at Uptown Station, located at 2000 Louisiana Avenue in New Orleans, the very facility that we seek to designate in his honor. The true embodiment of the old adage that neither rain nor snow nor sleet will keep a postman from completing his rounds, Mr. Rondeno was widely known as a dedicated and beloved letter carrier who would never fail to deliver even the smallest package in pouring rain. As noted by the New Orleans Times-Picayune newspaper, many residents along Mr. Rondeno's route had formed a close relationship with this letter carrier and described him as a charismatic man who always had a kind word for everyone. According to his friend and Uptown resident Susan Hereford, Mr. Rondeno not only delivered the mail every day, but rather also delivered, quote, a little piece of himself and connected with everyone on his route. Dr. Brian Gear, another Uptown resident, further describes Mr. Rondeno as an exceptional human being, a great letter carrier, and a real credit to his profession. The extent of Mr. Rondeno's commitment to his job and his Uptown residents that he was proud to serve was never more evident than on September 26th of this year. Mr. Rondeno volunteered to work on his day off, given that the Uptown station lacked enough letter carriers to cover the day's route. As Mr. Rondeno was sorting mail in the back of his truck, he was struck by a car and tragically lost both of his legs as a result of the accident. The outpouring of support for Mr. Rondeno and his family that followed his hospitalization stands as a true testament to Mr. Rondeno's standing in Uptown New Orleans as a model public servant and community member. Notably, local merchants and community leaders promptly established a donation fund to assist Mr. Rondeno in his recovery, and signs of support for the letter carrier could be seen hanging in a variety of local storefronts along his route. Regrettably, on October 2nd, only 6 days after this accident, Mr. Rondeno died from heart failure during surgery. Mr. Rondeno was only 57 years old at the time of his death, and he had planned on retiring from the Postal Service early next year, so as to focus his attention on serving his New Orleans community in a different capacity through an outreach ministry that he recently founded with his beloved wife, Shirley. As noted by Acting Louisiana District Manager Peter Sgro, upon Mr. Rondeno's passing, Roy was a dedicated postal employee who wore his uniform proudly. Everybody who knew him agreed he had a tremendous work ethic and always worked to provide the best service to customers and the Postal Service. Mr. Speaker, while Mr. Rondeno is no longer with us, his memory will undoubtedly live on through his wife Shirley, his 3 sons Roy, Richard, and Ryan, and all those who were fortunate enough to know this dedicated and hardworking public servant. Mr. Speaker, it is my hope that we can pay tribute to the life and legacy of Mr. Roy Rondeno Sr. through the passage of this legislation to designate the Uptown Postal Facility in his honor. I urge all of my colleagues to join us and Mr. Gow, the chief sponsor of this measure, in supporting H.R. 3951, and I reserve the balance of our time.
Gentleman reserved. Gentleman from Louisiana.